are not important because of how long you live. You are important because of how effective you live. And most people are so concerned about growing old rather than being effective. The people who have impacted the world didn't live long.
Children of the lie, yeah. Children of the lie, yeah. Children of the lie, yeah. Children of the lie.
John F. Kennedy.
Children of the lie. Children of the lie. Children of the lie, yeah.
I mean, these people
Children of the
who
lie,
impact the world.
yeah. Children of the lie, yeah. Children of the lie, yeah. Children of the
But they
lie.
live so effectively
Children of the lie, yeah.
that we
Children
cannot
of the
erase
lie,
them from history.
Children of the lie, yeah. Children of the lie, yeah. Spirit looking like ice. Follow law so precise, yeah. Much I pay the price. We in here like lights, yeah. They ride our waves like bikes. Devil watches like yikes. We never do what he likes. And I'm watching all the demons, they sneaky. Yeah, they always come in at us like 3D. And I'm praying that the Ruach don't leave me. We growing sis just like Dexter and Didi. The devil always tries hardest to beat me. It'll never work like Stevie and Mimi. Y'all don't get it, reality TV. And if you don't, then I understand. Cause on the other hand, yeah, I barely watch TV. Meditating so the angels could reach me. Frequencies like a satellite TV. Discern the spirit so I analyze easy. Wickedness in the spiritual realm. They can try me, but it ain't gonna be easy. If it's beef, then I end them all easy. It's going down just like French's or ZZ's. Children of the lie, yeah. 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 Children of the lie. Children of the lie, yeah. Children of the lie. Children of the lie. Children of the lie, yeah.
And therefore, when you have a purpose for your life, it disciplines your behavior.
Children of the lie.
And chooses your habits. Purpose gives life meaning.
This is what the Pharisees tried to stop. This is what got John the Baptist locked. This is what got Paul neck chopped. This is what introduced the Ruach. This is why Moses wrote every jot. This is my guaranteed heaven spot. This is the gospel of a Mashiach. Guaranteed none of this getting stopped. Sit still, clear your mind, praise Yah, meditate. See myself small like FaceTime. Seek his face and his peace, renovate. Tapped in. Elevate for heaven's sakes, no pun intended. Recommended, delegated like a senate. Out of box, outbox like I sent it. I feel the spirit. Y'all bless me with the wisdom, so I spill it like a beverage. Meditate in the field, son of edges. Read his words like he texted. Not a Bible, but a weapon. We the army, why you stressing? Triple numbers, manifesting. They don't know better. Adolescent, that's a lesson. Not finna play with y'all, bro. The Mashiach specifically said, if thine eye be single, it shall be full of light. What do you think he was talking about? He said single, eye. That is singular, not plural. But the world take it and say it is third eye, so we see it as wickedness. No, that's the gateway to the kingdom of heaven, bro. Focus on nothing. Praise the Most High until you feel his energy. Shalom.
Here's another statement I thought was interesting in the book of Ecclesiastes 3, verse 1. To everything there is a season, and to every purpose there's a time under heaven. In other words, if you are in heaven, it's eternal, there's no time. But when you come below heaven, you now have a purpose that has been fulfilled in time. That means you were born to do something.
KWT slaying.
Salam, my family. Salam, how y'all doing today? Hope you're blessed and highly favored children of the light. That was Annival the servant. Interesting times. Some things I see, I sort of wish I didn't see. And I guess the good thing is that I could be wrong. That's a good thing in some instances, right? Um, in order to see where I'm going with some of these things, you probably need to have watched my video called The Antichrist to see how I think the Antichrist moves around. I know. If you haven't seen it, you ain't going to understand nothing. But also, I'm going to show a clip, a few minutes of one of my other videos about the Antichrist. It's called Did I Find the Antichrist? And we're going to watch a little bit of that, and we're going to discuss some things. And I do recommend you go watch the other video called The Antichrist, because you probably won't be able to understand where I'm going with this today. And like I said, I don't have to be right. I hope I'm wrong, but it sure looks like I'm right. But we shall see. We were literally told his name. Now you'll see where I'm going with it. His name. Revelation 13:17, and that no man might buy or sell save he that had the mark or the name of the beast or the number of his name. So who is the Antichrist and what is his name? So as we go on, keep this in mind, family. We're going to look at Revelation 13:17 as a formula. We're going to look at it as a formula, just like you do in mathematics, but we're not going to really be adding anything to get a total. We're looking at it as a means of reference, like in what? Algebra, right? Solving for y, solving for x. We're going to be solving for Mark. We're going to be solving for the name of the beast. We're going to be solving for the number of his name. So what do you mean, Jacoba? Here it says there's a mark or the name of the beast. What's his name? And what is the number of that name? Okay, are you getting it? So let's continue. So in Revelation 13:7, the Bible literally tells us the name of the beast. Okay, so this is from Wikipedia. In the Texas Receptus manuscripts of the New Testament, the book of Revelation 13:17 through 18 cryptically asserts 666 to be man's number, or the number of a man, depending on how the text is translated, associated with the beast. Now remember, this is the English mindset and thinking being added here, okay? Depending upon how the text is what? Translated, associated with the beast. An antagonistic creature that appears briefly about 2/3 into the apocalyptic vision. Okay, now take note of here. Some manuscripts of the original Greek, what? Some manuscripts of the original Greek use the symbols chi, z, stigma. We talked about chi, z, stigma in my Antichrist videos. We talked about how the mark is going to have three forms. The mark, his name, and the number of his name. So they say it is chi, z, stigma, while other manuscripts spell out the numbers in words. So some went ahead and translated it into 666 or 603 score 6. While the other manuscripts said chi, z, stigma. See, a lot of the ancient languages and alphabets, you can swap them out with numbers. And that's what some of them did. And that's how we got the 666. All right, so chi, z, stigma. Here is wisdom. Let him that hath understanding what? Count the number of the beast, for it is what? The number of a man, and his number is 603 score and 6. So remember, some said chi, z, stigma here. So, and his number is chi, z, stigma. Some translate 603 score and 6. We're going to use, and his number is chi, z, stigma. Now, understand, number is the word, Greek word arithmos, which means to count or to reckon, right? You know how they say, like in the old country stories, like what was it? The Beverly Hillbillies. I'm here to reckon, right? I'm here to reckon. And so it says here that his name, remember, We're looking for the formula, right? Which is the mark, his name, and the number of his name. What? The mark and the name of the beast, right? So 6, Chi, is the mark. Z is his name, right? And the number of his name. So verse 17 tells us it is the number of his name, while 18 tells us it is the number of the beast and the number of a man. If we're looking at verse 17 as a formula, wouldn't that make the number of his name 60 for Z? Chi Z. All right. So a different way of looking at the mark is 666 or Chi Z stigma. The mark, I'm sorry, went too far. Y'all saw that already. The mark, his name, and the number. All right, so Chi is the mark. The Greek letter that looks like X is named Chi, which is pronounced Chi. The Chi was a kind of very hard H sound. It always transcribed as K. So the mark is Chi, a tattoo of his name. His name is Xi Jingping. Okay, this is who I think the Antichrist is. Chi, his name. What is his name? Chi. Okay, so, and no man might buy or sell, save he that had the mark or the name of the beast or the number of his name. What? The mark or what? His name. What is his name? Chi. Chi Z stigma. So like I was saying, so I misspoke there. It is Xi. Chi Xi. Okay, I misspoke there. So his name is Xi. Xi Jinping. Chi Xi stigma. So his name is Xi. In the beginning, when I was referencing Cyrus, Cyrus was mentioned before he was born. My case I'm making here that the name is Chi. His literal name is Chi. And I repeat again, his name is Z. I misspoke. Chi. Who's the Antichrist? This guy right here. This is my case. And I'm going to continue. Okay, I'm going to continue. So just as the Most High told us who Cyrus was, he told us that the Antichrist is Chi. Z. I mean, I'm sorry, not Chi, Z. The Antichrist name is Z. So it's Chi, which is the mark, his name, which is Z, and the number of his name, which is 60. All right. So, Yacoba, you're going too far. Well, you got to see my whole analysis, and that's what we're going to do. Thank you for the gift, Brother Keith. You're going to have to see my whole analysis because it's not just reliant upon his name being Z. So Xi Jingping is who I think the Antichrist is. How do we get to him being the Antichrist? Well, if we look at what happened, all of this stuff that's happening today started where? In China. But that ain't even part of my position. But understand that he started all of this. And why? Because we're going to what? The Great Reset. We're going into the New World Order, which is why we see what's happening in Australia, which is why we see what's happening in Austria, which is why we see the things happening in Germany and around the globe. So let me continue. I'm going to make my point. Like I say, eat the meat, spit out the bone. All right, so his number, Z, is the 14th letter of the Greek alphabet. It is pronounced in modern Greek and generally or in English in the system of Greek numerals. It has a value of 60. Z was derived from the Phoenician letter Samka. So Revelation 17 says that no man might buy or sell, save he that had the mark, which is the tattoo, or the name of the beast, which is Z, or the number of his name, which is 60. So the number of his name is 60. So I'm not saying the number of his name is 666. I'm saying his number is 60. And I'm saying that the formula that's used to determine this is Chi Z stigma. Now we're going to get to a point and you're going to say, well, you know, here it says 666. It all depends on your viewpoint. That's why I said, if you have a different lens, you know, and I'm not, like I'm saying, this is my theory. If you have a different lens, it might look a little different. All right, so descendants of the dragon. I want to show you this particular video here and show you the descendant of the dragon. All right, so let me go back. All right. All right, family. So the descendant of the dragon. Let's look at this right quick.
I would say China 5,000 years it goes back. Right? Seems to be 5,000. Right? 5,000 at least.
有文字的是3000。
And I guess the oldest culture they say is Egypt at 8,000.
对，
8,000.
埃及更古老一些，
Egypt is
但是呢
older than China.
文化没有断过流的，始终传承下来，只有中国。
But the Chinese civilization is
So this is your original form, Brian Marx. Yeah, it really is.
这就是原来的文化。
对，
Yeah.
就我们这些人也是原来的人，
and people like us
黑头发、
we
黄皮肤，
be traced back to
传承下
5,000
来
years ago.
我们叫龙的传人。
Red hair, yellow skin. We call ourselves the inheritance of people going down from strength.
All right. So what do we get from all of this? We get that Xi, who's the head of Communist China right now, they are called the descendants of the dragon. And the point I was making as well is that with Kai Xi stigma, it talks about in the scripture the mark of the beast or the name of the beast or the number of his name. So my point was that Xi is the name of the beast. Okay. So the name of the beast is Xi. Kai Xi stigma, his name is Xi. So here's the thing. As I go through this, like I mentioned, you're going to get a little confused, right? Because there's some timing issues here. We know we go back to the land. We know that we live in peace for a while. We know that after we've been in the land for a while, you know, Gog and Magog come for us, right? And so, you know, these are the type of things where you can get the look, stop it with the Chi Xi Sigma Christo stuff, dude. Stop it. It doesn't mean that. Please. If you want to go to the Greek, go to the Greek. It doesn't mean that. Y'all get on my last nerves, man. Come on now. Don't just stop. Look, put some references out there. Don't just stop putting stuff out in the chat. You got some reference, put the reference. Otherwise, sit back. Anyway, point being is that if you haven't seen the video dealing with the Antichrist and how I believe you have the spirit of the Antichrist, which is Apollyon, and this is why the scripture says there are many Antichrists. Okay, there's many Antichrists. And when you have many Antichrists, right, well, how do you have that? I believe, you know, eat the meat, spit out the bones, that you have this spirit called Apollyon that possesses leaders of the world. And this is why I think sometimes you have a timing issue, right? It'd be like, well, okay, how is he here at this point in time? How does this happen over here? How do we go back to the land? And then how is he there when Christ returns? Those are the type of questions we're going to have to deal with. But why is this important? Because understand what we're seeing today. We're seeing the implementation of the New World Order, the kingdom of the Antichrist, the son of perdition. All right. It's obvious. We see the destruction of the world economy. We see the banks starting to fail, which is going to implement the CBDCs. We're seeing the 15-minute cities, which are going to be prisons. We're seeing the mega cities, right, which are going to be nice prisons. We're seeing the line, right, which is a mega city over there in Saudi Arabia, right? We see all of these things being built. We're seeing the Macabre being built also in Saudi Arabia. We're seeing all of these things being built. We're seeing the tracking of people. We're seeing the implementation of social credit. We're seeing the whole thing here. Now, what kicked off this whole thing? What kicked it off? I'm not going to mention it, but you know what kicked it off 2 years ago. Y'all know what I mean when I say 2 years ago. What kicked it off was 2 years ago. And where did it come from? China. Okay. Now, let's just look at it. We're going to put the pieces together and we're going to try to figure out what's going on here. And personally, there's a good chance in my book that Xi's the Antichrist or one of the Antichrists, because I believe there's many Antichrists, as the scripture says.
小区啊，
像不像军事化管理？现在买个菜，原来是。
不用疑惑，我来给你们解答这个问题。我现在在外面，然后我进去就正常刷脸就可以。
验证通过。
就进来了吗？我真的进来了，然后没有人管我。现在看，再绕出去。以前哪敢呢？不行，迫不及待了，快跑！看，这是另一个闸机。
验证通过。
我又出去了，这回信了吧？这才能出来。
All right, so y'all can see the implementation of the Mark of the Beast system. This is part of this whole 15-minute city type thing. You're going to have to scan in. You're going to have to scan out. You're going to have to get permission to leave. It's a prison. The other thing we need to make sure we look at is who started this? Who started this whole system we're dealing with today? Who started the collapse of the banking system because of what happened 2 years ago? I don't have to say it. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Where did the you know what come from? Who kicked it off? China. Who's the one implementing this whole system of tracking social credit and all of this stuff first? China. China's doing a lot of stuff. Now, what makes this more interesting is there's some scriptures that point to the man of sin and what he's going to do and who's associated with him. And we're going to talk about that. All right, so some of y'all know about this, right? Iran, Saudi Arabia deal cast China in unfamiliar global role. An agreement between Iran and Saudi Arabia to reestablish diplomatic relations has cast China in a leading role in Middle Eastern politics, a part previously reserved for longtime global heavyweights like the US and Russia. It's another sign that China's diplomatic clout is growing to match its economic footprint. Under strongman leader Xi Jingping, Chinese diplomacy has become known for angry outbursts against the West, threats against Taiwan, aggressive moves in the South China Sea, and a refusal to condemn Russia over Ukraine. The deal reached in Beijing Friday, under which the sides agreed to reopen their embassies and exchange ambassadors after 7 years of tension, shows a different side of Chinese diplomacy. Xi appears to have played a direct part in the talks by hosting Iran's president in Beijing last month. He also visited the Saudi capital Riyadh in December for meetings with all rich Gulf Arab nations crucial to China's energy supplies. The agreement was seen as a major diplomatic triumph for China, coming as Gulf Arab states perceive the United States as winding down its involvement in the Middle East. I think it is a sign that China is increasingly confident in taking a more assertive role in the Middle East, said Muhammad Zulfikar Rahmat, an Indonesian academic affiliated with the Washington-based Middle East Institute. China's economic interests increasingly draw it into conflicts far from its shores. It's by far the biggest customer of Middle Eastern energy exports, while the U.S. has reduced its need for imports as the country shifts toward energy independence. China's officials have long argued that Beijing should play a more active role in the region, said June Tufel-Dreyer, a political scientist at the University of Miami specializing in Chinese politics. Meanwhile, U.S.-Saudi frictions have created a vacuum that Beijing was happy to step into. China has invested heavily in regional energy infrastructure. It also occasionally contributed naval ships to join anti-piracy operations off the coast of Somalia, though the U.S. Navy has served as the main security guarantor for Middle Eastern waters since the 1980s. In a statement Saturday, China's foreign ministry quoted an unidentified spokesperson as saying Beijing pursues no selfish interest whatsoever. China has no intention to and will not seek to fill so-called vacuum or put exclusive blocks, it said in an apparent reference to the U.S. At the close of the ceremonial legislature's annual session Monday, leader Xi Jingping said China should actively participate in the reform and construction of the global governance system and promote global security initiatives. So understand this, okay? So before, the relationship between Iran and Saudi Arabia was not good. And Iran helped finance the Yemen war, if you want to call it that. So now after this agreement, after this, alliance between Iran, China, and between Iran, China, and Saudi Arabia, I guarantee you're going to see in the news that the conflict in Yemen has subsided, thus bringing peace to that part of the world. They've been fighting for a long time in Yemen. All right, so who brokered this peace? Who brokered this agreement? China. Now, here's the other thing, and we're going to talk about that a little bit too. Saudi Arabia wants to become a member of BRICS. Iran wants to become a member of BRICS. I told you before, there's a new sheriff in town. Here's the thing, and I mentioned this before. There is no way they let China become an economic superpower and military power by accident. When they sent all of the manufacturing and all of the manufacturing and everything to China, they knew China would become a world power. They knew China would have money out the wazoo. They knew China would build up their military and infrastructure. What's happening is you need an alternative to the existing power structure. Now, does that mean the elite of America knew that, hey, they're being sold out? I doubt it. Because, see, you have what you call American elite and you have the global elite. And the global elite set all of this up for China to become a world superpower, strong enough and economically strong enough to contend with the West. Not only that, as they were going through implementing the BRICS and going through implementing the Belt Road Initiative, nobody stopped it. When they were implementing the quote-unquote Silk Road, nobody stopped it. U.S. runs algorithms. They do war games. They do analysis. You think they didn't know this was going to happen, but they couldn't do anything. Why? Because the guys at the top want China to be the new economic superpower. And they are, and they will be. What the West don't realize, and what the Gentile Christians don't realize, they've been sold out. But understand that Xi Jingping has taken on the role of peace mediator. Not the U.S., not the U.S. Now, I'm going to just play a short part of this clip right here just to show it. Hold on, I got this thing acting funny again. One sec. We try to refresh that. It's not looking right.
The world's largest oil producer, Saudi Arabia, is reportedly asking to join BRICS. The regional bloc, comprising Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, has been touted as a serious counterweight to the Western-led world order. Just a week ago, during his visit to Saudi Arabia, South African President Cyril Ramaphosa announced that Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman expressed the kingdom's interest in joining BRICS. Saudi Arabia, home to 17% of the world's proven oil reserves, maintained close security and economic ties with the U.S. for decades. But since the election of Joe Biden, Riyadh has seen its relations with Washington worsen sharply. Earlier this month, OPEC Plus announced it would cut oil production by 2 million barrels a day. The U.S. blasted Saudi Arabia for the move, saying it would directly support Russia and hurt U.S. consumers ahead of next month's midterm elections. The BRICS countries have long called for new financial centers to counteract U.S.-dominated institutions like the IMF and World Bank. Would Saudi Arabia's inclusion into the group help BRICS achieve that goal?
All right, so we see that Saudi Arabia is joining BRICS. We also saw that that China is the mediator of a quote-unquote peace agreement for the most part between Iran and Saudi Arabia, which brings peace to Yemen and other parts of the world, right? Or in the Middle East. All right, so why is this important? Because there's things we see in the scripture that points to this all lining up, right? All right, so Ukraine war. Zelensky wants Xi Jingping meeting following China's peace plan. So now there's a chance that Xi Jinping may end up mediating between Russia and Ukraine and thereby implementing a peace plan, which is what you would expect of who? The Antichrist, right? The man of sin. All right, so Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky has said he plans to meet China's leader Xi Jinping to discuss Beijing's proposals on ending the war in Ukraine. So why now? He didn't want to do it before. Speaking on the first anniversary of Russia's full-scale invasion, he said the proposal signaled that China was involved in the search for peace. I really want to believe that China will not supply weapons to Russia, he said. China's plan calls for peace talks and respect for national sovereignty. However, the 12-point document does not specifically say that Russia must withdraw its troops from Ukraine. And it also condemns the usage of unilateral sanctions in what is seen as a veiled criticism of Ukraine's allies in the West. The Chinese authorities have so far not publicly responded to Mr. Zelensky's call for a summit with Mr. Xi. Meanwhile, Russia hailed the Chinese peace proposals. We share Beijing's views, the foreign ministry in Moscow said in a statement. Earlier this week, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken said Beijing was considering supplying weapons and ammunition to Russia, a claim strongly denied by Beijing. On Friday, American media again reported that the Chinese government was considering sending drones and artillery shells to Moscow. Asked about the Chinese plan, U.S. President Biden told ABC News on Friday, Putin's applauding it, so how could it be any good? I've seen nothing in the plan that would indicate that there is something that would be beneficial to anyone other than Russia, he added. China appears to be siding with Russia, though it would like to find a way of rescuing President Putin by arranging some kind of face-saving peace deal, says BBC's World Affairs. The Chinese proposals follow a visit by the country's top diplomat, Wang Yi, to Moscow, where he met Putin and Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov on Wednesday. After the talks, Mr. Wang was quoted by China's state-run Xinhua news agency as saying that Beijing was willing to deepen political trust and strengthen strategic coordination with Moscow. Western officials gave the latest proposals a lukewarm reception. NATO chief Stoltenberg said Beijing doesn't have much credibility because it had not been able to condemn the illegal invasion of Ukraine. Putin launched the full-scale invasion of Ukraine on February 24, 2022, and Russian troops made significant advances during the first few days in Ukraine's northeast-south. But the attack on the capital, Kiev, was soon repulsed, and the Ukrainian military was later able to retake large areas. The conflict, the biggest in Europe since World War II, has since become a grinding war of attrition. All right, so, but Zelensky's calling for a peace plan. He wants to meet with Xi. Now, let's assume that this meeting takes place, right? And Xi implements the peace plan. To me, it makes him more and more of a candidate for the Antichrist. Okay, 1 Thessalonians 5:3. While people are saying peace and safety, destruction will come on them suddenly as labor pains on a pregnant woman, and they will not escape. So apparently, there's going to be a time where people call for peace. Now, Xi already brought together Iran and Saudi Arabia. If he solves the issue with Russia and China, Russia and Ukraine, right, then he'll be the man of peace. Now, this is also important because Scripture says in Daniel 8:23-25, and in the latter time of their kingdom, when the transgressors are come to the full, a king of fierce countenance and understanding dark sentences shall stand up. And his power shall be mighty, but not by his own power. And he shall destroy wonderfully, and shall prosper and practice, and shall destroy the mighty and the holy people. And through his policy also he shall cause craft to prosper in his hand. And he shall magnify himself in his heart, and by peace shall destroy many. He shall also stand up against the prince of princes, but he shall be broken without hand. Now, this is where it causes a little confusion, at least for me. All right. So it says here that he shall destroy wonderfully, and shall prosper in practice, and shall destroy the mighty and the holy people. That's us, right? The chosen, right? And it also says down here, by peace he shall destroy many. It also says that the prince of princes, which is Yeshua, shall destroy him, basically. So how do you get all of these things to go in harmony with what we already know in Scripture, right? We know we go back to the land. We know the Scripture says in Ezekiel 38 that the Gog and Magog are going to come against us after we have been back in the land, right? So is Xi going to be alive all the way to that time? No, I don't think so. Because we see also that Yeshua, the Prince of Princes, shall destroy the Antichrist. So how do we rectify this? The way I rectify it is based upon my teachings about the Antichrist. And I go through the scriptures to show you how I believe that the Antichrist is Apollyon. He's the spirit that take over the bodies of these world leaders. And I believe, you can eat the meat, spit out the bone, agree to disagree. But I believe that the whole reason of why we see the Antichrist and the false prophet thrown into the lake of fire before the great white throne is because they're not human. Because according to the scriptures, every human, every man who's not born again must stand before the great white throne and be judged. But we see the Antichrist and the false prophet, they go straight to the lake of fire. So that tells me that, the scripture tells us that there are many antichrists. And I think there's many antichrists because Apollyon possesses them. And go watch my teachings on the Antichrist because I go into detail of scriptures that seem to point to that. Okay? So timing-wise, when he destroys the holy people, right, it could still be in the far future because we know certain events must happen in between. And so if it's the spirit or Apollyon who possesses people, that this could happen later on. Because, if you ever watched our video dealing with the war scrolls, you will see the final battle between Israel and the Gog and Magog, Luciferic world order. And it's going to be a draw, basically, between us. And then Yeshua is going to come and destroy them all, right? So just go watch the video on the war scrolls just so you can get an idea. All right, so we saw that China has the system in place for the mark. They have the system in place for tracking. We saw that Xi Jingping has stated that they are descendants of the dragon. That's what he said. I didn't say it. Xi Jingping said they are descendants of the dragon. Now, we remember during this time how they mess with black folks, right? Black people in Beijing targeted in Ganzhou, China over the you-know-what fears. Y'all know about all this. So the Antichrist, as you would expect, has a hatred for Yah's people, which is why he wants to destroy Yah's people. Why? Because he's possessed by Apollyon. Or in the Hebrew, he's called Abaddon. So there's something we have to take note of. We see something happening that we haven't seen probably since World War II. We see the formation of a new power block. We see the formation of BRICS. I believe that BRICS is going to be the 10-nation confederacy, the 10-toe kingdom, the final kingdom of Daniel's statue, the 10 toes, the 10 horns of the book of Revelation. So we see that happening now. We see Saudi Arabia joining BRICS. We see Iran joining BRICS. We see all of these nations. Mexico wants to join BRICS. Everybody wants to join BRICS. Well, what happened to the U.S.? The whore is being set aside. Babylon is being set aside. She's being betrayed. Revelation 17:12-18. The 10 horns you saw are 10 kings who have not received a kingdom. So to me, these are the BRICS nations that's going to be coming together. They haven't received the kingdom yet, but who for 1 hour will receive authority as kings along with the beast. So these 10 kings, I believe to be the BRICS nations, right? This new system that's forming is the 10-toe kingdom. But for 1 hour will receive authority as kings along with the beast. So they're going to receive authority as kings along with the beast. So the 10-toe kingdom is going to receive authority along with the beast. So we have these 10 kings that receives authority to rule the earth along with the beast. So these BRICS nations, in my opinion, are going to receive authority to rule as kings along with the beast. So all of them are going to be equal in the beginning, and they're all going to be kings. They have one purpose and will give their power and authority to the beast. So at some point, those BRICS nations are going to give their power to China. They're going to give their power to Xi Jingping. Now, let's think about this for a second. China will have the biggest economic system, the biggest manufacturing base. They already have the most of the dollars, right? They have bought off many different nations. They invest in many different nations. They invest in Africa. They invest in Europe. They invest in Israel. They invest all over the place. China has a huge influence because of their wealth and also because of their military. So they will have one purpose, which is going to be the New World Order, Great Reset, and they will give their power and authority to the beast. Now, how that happens, we'll see. Now, according to my understanding, and I could be wrong, but according to my understanding, we go back to the land. We go back to Africa. And if you don't like that, I don't care. Don't text me. Don't mention me. Don't say nothing. So they will wage war against the Lamb, who? The 10 nations, this final world governmental power. But the Lamb will triumph over them because he is Lord of Lords, King of Kings, and with him will be his called, chosen, faithful followers. Now, as we saw in Daniel 8, right? They attack and kill the chosen, right? This man of fierce countenance comes on, and the prince of princes come and destroy him. Here we see that they, the 10, wage war against the Lamb, and the Lamb destroys them. Got to be the same timing, got to be the same event, right? Verse 15. Then the angel said to me, the waters you saw where the prostitute sits, that is Babylon, that is the U.S., that's who's being betrayed right now, are peoples, multitudes, nations, and languages. The beast and the 10 horns you saw will hate the prostitute. BRICS hates America. That's why all these nations are joining. That's why all these nations are joining BRICS. That's why Saudi Arabia getting rid of the oil-backed dollars. They will bring her to ruin and leave her naked. They will eat her flesh and burn her with fire. For Yah has put into their hearts to accomplish his purpose by agreeing to hand over to the beast their royal authority until Yah's words are fulfilled. So they're going to give all their power to China. This is how I see it. Eat the meat, spit out the bones. You ain't got to agree. They're going to give all their power to Xi. And like I said, he's just an antichrist, in my opinion. And in the future, there's going to be another antichrist who is possessed by Apollyon. I could be wrong about that, but it's the only thing that makes sense. And in order for you to understand it, you got to go watch my Antichrist video to see why I'm saying what I'm saying. So the woman you saw is the great city that rules over the kings of the earth. That's Babylon. That's America. That's the woman who controls the system currently. And the 10 are going to overthrow her. Is that not what we're seeing? Are we not seeing, do we not see an alliance of nations against Babylon? Do we not see an alliance of nations that hate Babylon? Is this not what's happening? An alliance between two polar opposites, China and the West, or the East and the West? All of this is going to lead up to the future conflict of Armageddon between Gog and Magog. And in my opinion, Gog and Magog includes Russia all the way up to China. But I think what's going to happen is, you ain't got to agree. And don't text me, don't write me, don't mention me, nothing. I don't want to hear it. But what I think is going to happen is that, out of these 10 is that 4 carpenters that kicked them off the continent because why? Everybody want our resources. In some kind of way, the Most High is going to use this Luciferic final government to send us back home. In some kind of way, we're going to be there and we're going to enjoy things until the time of Armageddon. Because remember, also within the timing of all of this, the Gentiles have to become slaves. They have to be sold to Israel, right? They have to serve Israel for a while. The Bible says that, those who were at rest and came out of the nations with wealth, that's in Ezekiel 37 and Ezekiel 38, that they come against us when we were at rest and they came to get our gold and silver and all that. So it has to be something where, the Antichrist is at this time and in the future. And I think this time it is Xi, and in the future it's going to be somebody else. Because the one I believe is thrown into the pit is Apollyon or Abaddon. Like I said, if you disagree, go watch the video. So remember, Xi Jingping says that they are descendants of the dragon. All right, Revelation 12:10-14. Then I heard a loud voice in heaven say, now have come salvation and power and the kingdom of our God and authority of his Messiah, for the accuser of our brothers and sisters who accuses them before our God day and night has been hurled down. They triumphed over him by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony. They did not love their wives so much as to shrink from death. So there's going to be some contention here where we might have to die or at least be threatened with death. Therefore rejoice, you heavens, and you who dwell in them, but woe to the earth and sea, because the devil has gone down to you. He is filled with fury because he knows that he has that he knows that his time is short. When the dragon saw that he had been hurled to the earth, he pursued the woman who had given birth to the male child. Now we know that the woman is Israel. Who is the dragon? We know that the woman is a nation called Israel. The dragon is a nation called who? China, in my opinion. He said they're descendants of the dragon and proud of it. The woman was given the 2 wings of a great eagle so that she might fly to the place prepared for her in the wilderness, where she would be taken care of for a time, times, and half a time out of the serpent's reach. So that's when we go into the wilderness. So we'll see if any of this is going to happen the way I see it. I'm going to put the link out there. I'm not going to pin it for those who might have some questions for me. And, we're not going to be all night. What's up, Fast Nickel?
How are you today, Brother Yakova?
Doing good. How you been?
I'm good. Man, I'm glad you're talking about this. Just about everything that you're saying, I've been trying to tell people, but I guess, it's not meant for everybody to see or understand. But I'll just say a couple of things. I think you're dead on. So what people have to understand, that there are secret societies, many families in the West and in the East. So it makes perfect sense that the dragon is a family from the East. What people don't realize is that China is the model that the World Economic Forum wants to implement. That's why everything they're doing with their social credit score, they are on board with everything China's doing, because that's the role model that they want for the world. What people don't realize, from 1870 to about 1970, the United States was a manufacturing powerhouse. That's what made us the great nation we were. But then they took it to China, and that was all planned, like you said. So when you talk about the global elite, I believe that the American elite know what's going on, but I believe here's where I think they believe that they're duped, thinking they're going to be protected when the crap hits the fan, that they're going to be protected. But they're either going to be shunned by the global elite, or God is going to intervene, and they're not going to be protected like they think they are. The other thing is, in 2015, they added the yuan to the SDR basket. Again, that was just another thing showing, putting China, just making the way for China. I agree with what you were saying on Saturday about the BRICS, being one leg, Rome being the other leg of the 2 legs. Also, what you said about Apollyon, what makes sense is about Xi and then someone else, because I never thought about it until you just said it about the Antichrist and the man of sin and his I'll just call him his Pope getting thrown in the fire, because we know in Revelation when it talks about how he will take a death blow, and I think if I'm mistaken, he's dead for 3 days and then he comes back. I think at that time is when that Apollyon or that spirit enters into that body, and that he's no longer human, like you were saying, and that's why he will be tossed into the lake of fire. And the other thing you mentioned about the multitude of nations and languages, I mean, there's no country that fits that model except America. America is a multitude of nations and languages. I mean, there's so much that you just, even tonight, that you've shown, that it just makes total sense. And for people who don't see it, I don't understand why they don't, other than maybe it's just not their time.
Yeah, thank you, Fast Nichols. Sister Betty, how's it going? Sister Betty.
Hey family, how's it going? Thanks, Jacoba, for having me up on the panel. I've never been a follower of anybody in my life, but, and I'm saying that to say, I'm not just agreeing with you, Jacoba, on PL Ministry to be a groupie, a follower. I'm a follower of nothing but truth. Always have been that way. What you are saying is just truth. And the thing that I'm going to say is, listen, you see America. America is of its father, Lucifer. He said, I will, and I will. America is proud. Christianity and white supremacy is bound by Satan. Pride. That pride flag, that pride attitude, they try to spread their pride all over the world. This is how they roll. This is why everything that you're saying is truth ministry. Like it, love it, or go to another channel. This is truth ministry. Everything that you're saying and bringing forth is truth. Go do your own research. Go back over and look at the old videos that's already came to pass. This is what's going down. It's going down. Family, repent, come out, grab your things, grab your money, grab your family, grab your loved ones, come out of this whore. Thank you.
Thank you, Sister Betty. Brother Karras.
Hey, shalom, Brother Yacob. I wanted to just hit two key points here that I think people kind of aren't really looking at when it comes to this dynamic that's being created by China's brokering of their peace dialogue, right, with Iran and Saudi Arabia. So strategically speaking, and I touched on this just a little bit this morning, you have major waterways and thoroughfares. You have Strait of Hormuz, which is the Persian/Arabian Gulf. You also have the Bab al-Mandeb, which is where you have basically Yemen and Eritrea, Djibouti, making that choke point. And yes, and Yemen was there where you had proxy forces that was controlled by those Iranian proxies. They already said it for about 8 years, or actually about 12 years. That started in 2011 with the Arab Spring. But I think a lot of people don't understand there's another significant force to that. Another significant force is Iran is now being sheltered by China and Russia. So where does that leave the Ashkenaz that's over there in Aelia Capitolina?
Yep.
They're in trouble because now not only do you have that, but you also have issues with France and how France wants to not join NATO, and they actually have their people in there wanting to get out of NATO. And if France collapses or basically leaves, NATO is done in Europe.
Well, France is already talking about leaving NATO.
Exactly. Now, if they do it, then that becomes an even worse scenario. And so, really, the another key point is that now when you look at China with the control of the South China Sea, and then you also have South Africa, which controls basically all the thoroughfare between the Indian Ocean and the Atlantic Ocean. The U.S. has choke points. They're basically stuck in the Atlantic and the Eastern Pacific. They can't go anywhere. And so all those ships that are there, and by the way, you also have Egypt that wants to join BRICS. You now have issues. So now all of this maritime travel has been strategically choke pointed for basically everything that goes to Europe and North America, because you also have Brazil in BRICS. So South America is cut off, Africa is cut off, and now potentially Western Europe is cut off, which leaves America in a very tight bind. So when we look at this and we look at the apparatus of what's going on, this is where you have any type of war that you may have, you have to have it fought first economically. And these are the economic wars that's happening. And we've been now seeing the impacts of it with these banks closing. Because why? Because nobody's buying our debt. And that shows it. Number two, another aspect of it, America makes its money by what? By war. So if the Houthis then settle and the Saudis then settle, then who's buying American missiles? Who's buying Patriot systems? Who's buying all this other stuff besides Ukraine? That's one aspect. It takes a lot more conflicts, quote unquote, for America to make its money. And so then on top of that, there's going to be really big issues that's there. I already look at it like this. There's going to be some sort of a uprise. There's going to be some sort of a, validity or volatility within the country. It always happens. It always happens. So that's where I think it's honestly stay tuned to see, what coup is going to take place and where is it going to be at. There's always contingencies there. That's just my opinion.
All right. Thank you, Brother Kara. Brother Keek.
Shalom, brother.
Shalom.
I'm glad you're doing this video. I hadn't seen your video about the Beast and President Xi, but once you played, even what little you played that I saw, it makes sense. It makes a lot of sense, and I hadn't thought about it like that before, to be honest with you. It makes sense for quite a few reasons. First of all, for those who may not know too much about Xi, however you say it, and I'll say President Xi. So for those who don't know too much about him, he kind of modeled his presidency, or I won't even call it presidency, really. It's more like a kingship, his rule, basically. He modeled it after Chairman Mao Zedong, which was the one who won the Civil War and that established the communist system. So he modeled himself after Mao Zedong, and he even has courses taught about him. Like it's almost like the book of Proverbs, like the sayings of Xi, President Xi. So he has courses taught about him and like his proverbs, basically. So he thinks very highly of himself. So when you presented him as the possibility, or like being like one of many antichrists, that makes a lot of sense. So that's really interesting. And as far as him being an antichrist, or China being like a world leader, people have to understand something about China. Now the West tries to make it seem like China is disorganized. They don't have a democracy, which they kind of do and they don't. But they make it seem like it's terrible. But what people have to remember about China is that China, and as he said in that video, it's an old civilization, a very old civilization. They know how to govern. They know how to rule. And for those who may not be familiar with Asian culture in general, especially Chinese culture, they are a community culture. They make collective decisions. They do things for the betterment of their society. So they're very organized, and they make it seem like it's not a democracy. And in some ways, it kind of isn't like a Western style democracy. But so President Xi has a lot of power, more power, I would say, than the American president, like any like American or European like leader or president, prime minister over their own countries, because he has a lot of power within his country. He can do a lot of stuff. But what people don't realize is that China is very good at democracy. For instance, they can be heavy-handed. They can be kind of what we would call cruel in some ways with how they treat their citizens. But a lot of times when they protest, the leaders will listen. They have a one-party system, just the Communist Party. That's it. They have a one-party system. They know how to govern. So when people protest in China, the government officials will actually listen. They know that they can't have too large of an uprising or too fervent of an uprising in order for them to keep their authority. So when they have their annual meetings and such, they actually make laws that actually bring about change. In America, when Michael Brown was killed, people protested, nothing really changed. Same thing with Trayvon Martin and George Floyd. Nothing really changes when we protest in America, but when they protest in China, a lot of times things actually change. So they have everything in place. You mentioned some other things too. Look, another thing people may not realize about Chinese society is that so they are leaders in facial recognition. First of all, they are masters at that. They're really good at it. Their systems are so integrated and so technologically advanced that if you are walking on the street in some like large cities in China and you jaywalk, for instance, facial recognition software will recognize you, and they will actually charge you a ticket without a cop having to actually write you a ticket. And they'll take it out of your bank account. So
Brother Key, what do you think about what Big Red said?
Well, yeah, he did. You mean like the former leader of China, how he had him carried out?
Yep.
Well, it all depends on how you define a democracy.
That's not a democracy.
It's not.
China's not a democracy.
well, here's the thing. They listen to their people in some ways more than a lot of Western leaders do. Because again, look at all the stuff that we've been rioting. We riot like bad riots over here in America, and nothing. We're rioting for the same things they rioted for back in the 1960s, police brutality. They still haven't fixed it. Now there are, of course, there are many reasons for that, but a lot of times they get things done and they are very efficient. And I guess that's the greater point. But so they have all those systems in place in terms of like the mark of the beast, all that stuff. They have the facial recognition software, and just like the video you played with the guy leaving the city. They have every mechanism, and they are more technologically advanced in America in a lot of ways, because when you go to China, you can buy stuff without having to use a credit card. In fact, using a credit card is kind of primitive in a lot of places in China. So they have everything in place that they need to be a superpower and to control people. Like really, they have a social credit system. You've talked about that. They have pretty much everything they need to rule and to control people and to dominate.
That don't sound like a democracy to me.
Yeah, when they go upside somebody's head, right? Because they didn't act right. But I get that point. So they are authoritarian in that sense. I guess my point was that a lot of times because they know that people can overthrow a government, and remember, they're very much familiar with their history with Mao Zedong and how he overthrew the government that was in place then. So they know that that's always a possibility. So, a lot of times they're more careful than a lot of American leaders are with regard to listening to their people, because they know what could happen. So I guess that was my greater point about that. But they will go upside somebody's head real fast when they don't like act right and obey. So in that sense, no, not really.
All right. Brother Doug.
Hey there, what's up? Sorry about that. So I'm listening to everybody, and and first let me comment and say we have some sharp minds, sharp people. that come on these panels every single time you have this, Brother Yacoba, and I want to thank you for the extending even the slightest opportunity. So Americans don't see their end, which is the weirdest of this whole dynamic. The pious nature, the privileged nature of these folks is they don't see the moves being made, the chess pieces being moved on this global board that put them, and I think, at a disadvantage. And more than that, China has every reason to do what we all see it about to do, which is in some way, shape, or form take out, and roll through America, if not enslave it, putting its own newly formed laws against it, because they're losing in certain areas. I heard Zechariah talk about its potential to be a superpower, but it is far from that. Its Navy is weak. It has one aircraft carrier. It wants Taiwan, though it is technologically advanced in some areas. It cannot keep up with that technological advancement because it does not have the required components to do so, nor the training. And most of that lies in Taiwan. The only thing that is stopping the Chinese from moving against Taiwan is the United States. And the United States at this point is a fractured, weakened society that is imploding and self-consuming its own population, soon to be in a civil war. So there's no mistaking that there are moves being made. And Brother Yacob, I have my hats off to you for this insight as I try to dovetail things together. I've not focused so much on bricks to understand the 10 kingdoms aspect, but what an insight. And I dare say we're blessed for hearing it. That's all I have. Thank you.
All right, Brother Doug. Brother Michael.
Hey, how you doing, Yacoba?
I'm good.
I was listening to you, brother, and I was thinking about what my business activities with China. I order a lot of equipment from them, camera switches, routers, and equipment like that. And you really helped me to see something I was pretty much looking at, but wasn't paying attention to. And I said, well, it don't make a lot of sense, because I had companies in Africa, like technicians calling me, hey, Mike, we got a problem here. And we seemed like seemed like they were saying they was being hacked. And I said, all right. And I just asked them, what type of equipment do you have in your data room? And they'll tell me what it is. And the first thing I will say, get the new equipment and have your people to install it. Do not have the other people to come in to, install it. And they say it's for free. And this is like a dispatch company in Ghana, matter of fact. And this happened like a year and a half ago. But once they did that, they stopped having that issue. And the brother called me back, and we had some conversation. And I told him what my understanding of it was, or who I thought it was. But then you come out and saying what you saying today, and I'm like, this brother's on point. I think it's kind of scary. I ain't gonna necessarily say scary.
It's disconcerting.
Thank you, brother. There you go, Yacoba. That's what I'm talking about. And so, I'm like, man, is it like that? And it is, because my mind was totally looking at some other entity as apart from what you were saying. Now I'm like, wait a minute, this brother making sense. Don't get me wrong, brother. I just don't follow people like that. I don't.
You and Sister Betty both.
Hey, and she may be my sister from a different mama.
We all sisters and brothers from our mother Eve in the cradle of life is Africa. So yes,
there you go. She just laid it down. She
Look,
just laid it down.
I'm gonna tell you this. Anybody who follow this channel, they don't follow no man. They follow Yahuwah, and they be led by the Spirit. They don't follow no man if they following this channel.
And brother, that's the beauty of it. And then one thing I noticed that you kept saying, I hope that I am wrong.
Yep.
That's what you kept saying. I'm like, well, this brother keep on saying he hope he is wrong. If he hope that he's wrong, why he get on this channel? I'm like, all right, let me hear this brother. But the brother, all right, you kept going with it. I said, no. And the first thing that popped in my mind was young King David. He was talking about going up against the Philistine and how people was laughing at him and how the armor that he had was really truly too big and too heavy for him. But his faith in Yah made him so strong till he killed that grown man being a young boy. I ain't gonna say a little boy, but a young boy. And we cannot underestimate Yah as to who he choose to use to dispense his information. That's the thing we have to really, truly stay on point with. Y'all don't. I want to use this man here, or I want to use this boy. If he got logical, scriptural understanding, y'all gonna use him. And brother, I will say this: I'll fall back on that notion.
All right, you're not gonna land your plane, brother Mike.
Hey, let's land it, but keep the engine idle.
Gotcha. All right, brother Don, how's it going? You gotta unmute yourself.
Hey. Man, I'm just moving around, man. I was on my way to LA this morning and got really interrupted by my equipment. We blew a fuse and lost the cap. So anyway, just getting ready for that trip. I think that you are very much on point. I was looking to see who was going to be the country that steps up. Which one, is going to take that lead point. But I agree with you on the spiritual thing because of the time, the amount of time that has to pass, and the various different things that have to happen before these things can be fulfilled. So I agree with you that it's definitely a spirit, and I believe that that spirit has been here ever since Paul said it was here. It was already here and working iniquity. Now America is, they'll never get out of the plantation owner mindset, because when they made China and they gave China the favorite trading nation status and they gave away the manufacturing, they gave away the wealth of this country.
Yep.
And China has just become that dragon that is, the world has to go to China for what it needs. And as soon as the United States is out of the way, Taiwan, they're just going to take that and nobody's going to stand in their way. There won't be anyone to stand in their way because Europe will be completely dependent on China. Needless to say, they might be a vassal of China. And everything will be cool until Mashiach cracks some skies. But isn't next year the year either of the I think next year is the year of the serpent, right?
Is it?
I think it's either the year of the serpent. I'm pretty sure it's the year of serpent because the year of the dragon, we just had that not too long ago, right?
Yeah.
So the serpent and the dragon are the same thing. So I believe 2024 is the year of the serpent. So next year is geared to be interesting. Absolutely. And I think, you know, I'm glad you brought this out because it brings things into perspective because we can get so caught up with, oh my goodness, it's the end of the world. And there's several things that still have to happen. That temple got to be built. The man of sin needs to be standing where he ain't supposed to be standing. We still got some more judgments that got to go down. So there is time in the Most High prophecy, because physical things take time, like the building of that temple. And so just to bring it back around, I believe you're 100% right. They meet the qualifications as a nation in terms of the number of people, and also the fact that America is just a stupid whore, and that's what Babylon was. And I land there.
All right. Big Red, how's it going?
What's going on, man? What's going on? I kept notes so that way, I wouldn't interrupt nobody. I want to talk about that democracy thing that my boy was over here talking about. China is the farthest thing I would describe as a democracy. They literally was the Jack Ma dude that owns AliExpress. He got disappeared because he said a mild criticism about them. There was a tennis player. She was in the Olympics, and one of the members in the Chinese Congress had basically came at her improperly, and she spoke out about it. She disappeared for months until she came back and they said, "Oh, nothing happened. I was wrong." And when Taiwan was supposed to have, I believe it was 20 years after the British handed back to them, China was like, nah, we need them resources now, and started running in there. That's when you had that big protest back in like 2018, 2019 with Hong Kong. Actually, it really went all the way in through to 2020 as well, if I remember correctly. They had the Taiwan Revolution of Our Time thing going on where LeBron showed that he was a shill for them because he just ignored that and took the side of the Chinese Communist Party. And they went into Taiwan and went into Hong Kong, carried literally, there's video of them carrying the members in there out because they would not leave because they were duly elected members, that they had a real democracy in Hong Kong because they were all elected by the people. China came in, carried them out, installed their own government, and changed all the laws that they had going on there. And basically everything out of Hong Kong just shut down and got quiet. Then they had another recent protest, a big protest with the COVID rules. Huge protest over there. Basically, I was shocked because nothing happened. They just let them protest. They was going in, and I'm like, that's not like China, because in China you don't protest. Last time China protest was Tiananmen Square, and we all know how that happened. We all know what happened there. That's where if those who don't know, Tiananmen Square was when you see that little classic picture of the little Chinese dude standing in front of the tank. They rolled out tanks for college students who were trying to protest against Chinese policy nonsense. So they all protest and nothing, it seemed like nothing happened. Then next thing you know, this girl released a video and she said, if you're watching this video, it's because my friends have been told to release this because I've been disappearing. Basically, everybody that's been protesting over there with COVID rules has been quietly getting disappeared with a blank arrest warrant. The warrant is blank. And they taking them to places they don't know where they taking them to. They just disappear. Literally, these people disappear. So this is literally, now I'm saying this because China is the example that they want to have for the new order. Man was absolutely correct. Their surveillance is next level. They know your ethnicity. They can tell whether you are Han. They can tell whether you are a Uyghur. They can tell whether you are any type of ethnicity in between. Now, to us, they all look. Some of us, people can't even tell. They think they look Japanese, but they had camera so sophisticated it can tell your ethnicity into that. It's insane the level of watch and the level of technology and surveillance that they have, and they lead the nation in that. And I agree with you on that. They are basically, this is going to be the model for everywhere. You see it going down in Israel. Israel has a lot of that stuff. South America, a lot of these other nations already do that. Like they take chips in their hands to go and pay for their food. I've seen French commercials talking about it where they walking out and they paying for their food with their hands. And the other what was it? Was one more thing about, my man Michael, you were not crazy about China in what they have going on in those equipment. I worked at a company and we dealt with, we do IT and stuff, but we also did surveillance equipment and stuff for places. And we don't put these things in government facilities. I was blowed. They had took the thing back. You weren't allowed to have China in government facilities before, but I believe this was back in like 2017-ish. Yeah, 2017. They rolled it back, and there were some McDill Air Force bases outlining places that have these Chinese surveillance equipment in there. It's basically a DVR. It's a camera system. And we used to sit and watch the traffic on a lot of these places where we had the DVRs, and they dial home. They die because you can see the location of it gives geolocation for IP addresses. So we started geolocating the IP addresses, and they were dialing back to China. And they just straight up dial back. I mean, constantly. When we just sitting there watching this, like we're putting this in at the government and it's dialing back to China.
Yep.
I don't know why
they did with the African Union, right?
Yeah, yeah. Again, I don't know why a DVR needs to dial back to China. A DVR should be a self-contained system that just shows you what you only time you have an outside connection is when you're connecting through your phone or something else outside to look at your cameras. It shouldn't be dialing back to China. There's no central hub where anything goes. It's just man, look.
But Donald
The
Trump,
brother is not lying. The brother is not lying.
but Donald Trump is crazy.
Right, man. Look, look, man. I don't. The man was definitely employed in the plant, but the good way to get in is by telling the truth. And I agree with Dave Chappelle. He was the first one to come out the house and be like, "Everything you see in there is true," and they go back in. Like they've been watching. Man, there's so much stuff. China got police stations in all over the world. I didn't even know this until recently because that's how they catching people. There's people that'll be in Canada that'll talk crap about China and go missing because they'll have a secret police station set up. There was one in New York. The United States tried to, there's no one, and downplay it, but no, there was one in New York where they had the same thing, where there was a guy and from New York who was talking about China, who came from China, and I think they tried to get him or almost got caught, and they basically disappear you, put you in the van, and take you back to the mainland where you face up and go to a re-education camp. Like this, in the beginning, I remember I really didn't fully agree with you on that. I didn't agree. But then right after that, I watched that training video, the one that when I was comparing the Chinese training video, the Russian training video, and the American one with Sarah and her two moms.
And this brother, he's not lying about that stuff. I'm telling you, I change out this equipment, and I look at I change out the RAMs, the drivers, and think, and I'm like, wait a minute, man, it seemed like they can get into this stuff, and just like what I was assuming. It's a reality. This brother is not lying. I mean, I agree with everything he's saying.
America has already been handed over, which is why those Chinese police stations are here.
That's it. It's been done. It's been done. There was a one of the last year in 2022, the biggest meat market in the West Coast was shut down. It was owned by China, and China just shut it down just because. Like this is it's like I said, when I disagreed, and some of the things, one thing you said today too, I still don't look at Xi that way, because there's a dude with the Revelation 2:9 people that just blows my mind on every level. Like the dude, they call him the Yanuka, and he got the elders bowing down, kissing his hand. That's unheard of, because they prideful as all get out. And them elders don't do that for nothing. And that's where he first got big news, when he sat in the elders chair last, I want to say Passover it was, last year, April, when he sat in the elders chair, and they had elders coming and bowing down and kissing this man's hand. They say he knows all the Talmudic writings and all that stuff like an encyclopedia, and he don't even use no book or notes. He just come up there and he just be spitting it off. And I've seen videos of him teaching, and he got elders in the first two rows, old men. He's young. He's like my age. He's like around the late 30s. Yeah.
But you gotta make sure you're looking at whether or not you're looking at the false prophet or the Antichrist. Because remember, the Antichrist is along with those 10 when they gain power. Then later on they give him, rulership basically, right? So there has to be this coming together of these nations, and that's what we're seeing right now, right?
Yep, that's what I was thinking at right there about with the false prophet on that scale. Because what made me change my mind with G was when I saw that training video, and randomly, I mean, again, randomly, they have them standing on the aircraft carrier with the upside. They call it the peace sign, where it's like looks like the little angled cross in a circle, but that's actually an upside down cross. That's a pagan symbol. It's not the peace sign. It's so funny that they always throw pagan symbols out there and call it peace signs, but it's a sign for it's a devil cross, and the number on the carrier was 666.
Yeah.
So I'm, people say, oh, people just
Hey,
blindly
family.
follow.
Hey, family, don't forget that dude is wearing glasses. The Hamashiach is not going to be wearing glasses, okay? False.
Yeah. Well, let me move on to Dave. Dave been waiting patiently.
Oh, yeah, I was going to end on that.
All right. What's up, Dave?
Good evening, family. How y'all doing?
Doing good.
China is an existential threat to us.
Yep.
When we get back over there in the land, our number one goal should be how do we get China out of there? I know they have they have their mission they have to accomplish as part of the Four Carpenters, but we need to find a way to get them out of our business. The people themselves are a drone class of people. China is the Borg. That's all you need to see. China is the Borg. We at Wolf.
Say it better, Dave.
Listen, we're at Wolf 357, and it's getting ready to go down. So we need to find a way that when we get over there and we get in the system over there, we need to find a way to deal with China and get them out of there. So
my theory is that when this war kicks off, China's going to be so weakened that they can't really influence us too much in the beginning.
I hope you're right. Because I tell you what, if I'm over there and I get pulled over by one of them Chinese police and I get into a conflict, somebody gonna get buried.
Oh yeah,
I'm not. No, it ain't gonna be like we over here in America.
Ain't none of us gonna put up with that.
Hell yeah. It ain't gonna be the same.
Don't get pulled over by no Chinese person. I'm serious. I ain't gonna lie to you. I think you call me Mike. Come here, man. Bro, you blink your eye, I'll be there.
I'll be right there with you too, bro. That's kind of crazy. Ain't nothing ain't happening.
Right, it ain't going down like that. That's the day I become a bad guy.
Oh yeah.
No, you won't be a bad guy. You will not be a bad guy. Not in no shape or form will you be a bad guy. No.
And that's how we need to come together. We need to realize that stop fighting our brothers, and we need to join and unite like the Lord wants us to. And unite one another. And we got a big fight on here because it's us against the rest of the world.
Yep.
And just remember, folks, when you think of China, think of the Borg. That's all I got to say.
I agree. All right, so we're going to get final comments. We're going to start with you, Fast Nickel. Final comment.
I'm going to say two things. One is when you see China with the police stations throughout the U.S., et cetera, and you say, how would America do this? It makes sense because they've been taking all our debt for the last few decades. So that's probably their payment for them taking our debt.
That's true.
That's one. The second thing, I don't know if a lot of people realize why Taiwan is so valuable. So anyone who has an iPhone 14 or brand new MacBook Pro, they use the M1 chip. Those chips are made in Taiwan, and those chips are AI chips. They are very valuable. And that is one of the things that makes Taiwan so valuable, because those chips are manufactured in Taiwan.
All right. Thank you, Fast Nickel. Sister Betty, final comment.
Oh, hold on. Lord help me in here. Listen, family, I want to thank you, Kobe, for this night. Tonight was a good conversation, and I pray to the Most High Yah that everybody is paying attention, because I know you, Kobe, is not spending all this time just to hear us Hebrew kiki and giggle giggle. And none of this funny. It's all very serious. What we're talking about every time we come on a live with Karis early in the morning, then you Kobe in the evening, Sister E, everybody that we listen to, listen up, family. This is very real. This is prophecy unveiling before our very eyes right now. This is no funny business. By the end of 2024, everything gonna be done hit the fan. You better be paying attention to these coming together that we're having in the name of Yahushua HaMashiach. I pray that you are. Have a good night, family.
Thank you, Sister Betty. Brother Karras, final comment.
Yeah, shout out to everyone on the panel because you all had great points. I'm gonna tell you, listen, China done infiltrated everything. That's a confirmed fact. They done infiltrated the AU, the AU with every with their surveillance equipment. Remember, you can't even use an iPhone. And you're right, that was around since like 2017, 18. So they're like, yeah, it is probably infiltrated. So I look at it like this: we've always been dealing with the spirit of the Antichrist since Yahusha's time, but now we're dealing with this time to where we're getting ready to get out of our captivity, and now we're going to see the full manifestation. So when we get back to our land, when you're reading, when you're understanding the Roar Scrolls, shout out to Brother Yacoba when he was bringing that about. All that does is coincide with Enoch. When we're back, when the sheep, well, it says when the sheep's eyes are fully awake and they're back in their land, and then they have to do what? Then they have to fight. Then they have to fight, and all the sheep are awakened, and all the sheep had swords. And it's not just one fight. It's not just two fights. It's a couple fights. Because why? Because we're going to be holding a monopoly on the resources of this world. And I don't think a lot of people truly understand what that's going to mean. These nations are going to be poorer. And they're trying to tailor how can they manage um their level of poverty. What does it take? How many people do they need to get rid of? Right? Population control, i.e. climate change. Because why? Because you're the carbon that they want to get rid of.
Exactly.
And so now, when we're understanding that we have our people on the land, in the land, on the continent, that want to bring us back, this time in but how crazy is that from 2016, 2017 to now? That's amazing. Who would have thought that? No, Africa doesn't like, all the camp nonsense. Oh, we don't go to Africa, this and that. And now here we are. Here we are at this time. And see, y'all have to be careful because y'all don't even realize that we're literally seeing the economy on an edge, about to plummet to its oblivion, to its demise. And people are like, I don't know. You want to know how quickly things go crazy? Have you ever seen Lebanon when Lebanon couldn't get the euro and their economy went to nothingness overnight? And that only happened in 2020, 2021. So imagine if nobody's buying the debt or we fall below the threshold of the debt securities being insecure, and then there's no liquidity. Nobody can get cash, then nobody will be able to do transactions. Tell me how that's going to work. Exactly. Venezuela, too. Right, Melody Thomas? Venezuela, too. We've seen that model. But we get a false sense of security that we think, oh, it's so far off. Y'all don't realize that thing could that we're it's early in the week here. Because why? On Mondays they always do what? They always prop up the bank. Then on Tuesday they're gonna say we need more money, and then it's gonna slide again. Am I lying?
You're right.
That's literally what it's going to be like. It's going to be a roller coaster ride, roller coaster ride, roller coaster ride. Then on Friday, then on payday, people are going to be like, well, what do we need to do? And then they're going to show on up and nothing's there.
Yep.
Do you get the setup now? Welcome to spring. First day of spring, first day of the Hebrew New Year. Next week, I'm just saying. That's all I got to say. Shalom, family.
All right. Thanks, Brother Carrot. Brother Keith.
All right. I love the title of this message, The Rise of the Dragon. The way I see it, and I think that to some degree, we have to do some multi-layered, complicated thinking about this. Let me preface what I'm about to say with look at the title, The Rise of the Dragon. China calls themselves the dragon. So they are evil. They are wicked. They, just like President Xi said, that was interesting hearing him say that they are descendants of the dragon. They, and I don't think it can be any more clear than that. We know prophecy, we know scripture when it talks about dragon, but they call themselves the dragon. So they're not even hiding it. Like that's their father, basically. They're descendants of the dragon. So they're evil. However, so I know who and what they are. I'm under no illusions about that whatsoever. However, I'm glad to see them rise because I realize the role they play in prophecy and in dealing with our enemies, and in dealing with those who scattered us, and being the four carpenters. I understand the role they play in it. Look, there isn't a single Hebrew nation on earth. Of course, we're a nation as a people, as a collective, but I'm talking about an actual country where they have a government and an army. There's no nation on earth, actual country, that actually serves Yah, openly, just like we did in days of King David. It just doesn't exist on earth. We don't have an army. We can't do this stuff. We don't have a financial system, but they do. They are powerful, and I think Yah allowed them to rise up for his purposes. Now, they're going to play a key role in it. Will they be destroyed in the end? Yes. Will they be weakened in the end? I agree with you, Minister Yacob. I think they're going to be weakened in the end. And then we will have to deal with them one day when we are back in the land and when we have established our country, we're a nation again. We will have to deal with them. But for now, they have a purpose to serve. And I think the Most High is using them. And one thing people have to remember about China, China has not colonized other countries. They usually want to do business with the country. They mistreat their own people and they mistreat their employees. Well, actually, they mistreat their own people who are their employees. But then we've seen how they've treated some Africans as well. But generally speaking, the government doesn't usually abuse other governments, if you will. And they don't colonize. They don't have a history of colonization like these European countries. So Yah has a place for that dragon, and he's going to destroy the dragon. And they are evil, but he does have a role for them to play, and they are the ones that are in the best position to deal with this enemy or these enemies, because there are multiple who have had their feet on our necks. So Yah's going to use China. Let me just say this about the banking system really quickly. They're lying or covering things up about the banking system really quickly. When you look at the underlying problems that cause those recent bank failures, it has to do with the treasury bonds, the government bonds that the government uses to raise money That's why we have $31+ trillion in debt, because they sell those bonds. That's how the government borrows money. They don't go to a bank to borrow money. They sell bonds to borrow money. So because they raise whenever the interest rates go up, the bond values or prices go down. It goes in the opposite direction of the interest rate. So the interest rates have been rising higher, higher, and higher. They're talking about doing it more and more and more. Each time they do it, the price of those bonds will go down. That's important because banks have to purchase assets. Like when you put your money in the bank, they have to invest your money. That's why they can pay interest on like savings accounts and stuff like that, and CDs and stuff. So they have to invest that money in prime assets, basically. And government bonds and U.S. government bonds are considered prime assets. So what has happened and what caused those bank failures is like those asset values went down. The prices of the bonds went down. So that caused the problem, basically. Long story short, folks, so they are focusing on these banks, but that happened to all banks because the value of these bonds went down across the board. So they're not really telling the truth about what's happening with that situation. Pretty much every bank in this country and in this world, actually, who like that invested in those bonds are going through the same thing. It's the same situation. So it'll be interesting to see this unfold, and it's bigger than they say. It's huge, but we'll see how it all pans out, like what they do to try to stabilize it. But by the way, the only way we can pay our bills is by borrowing more money. That $31+ trillion in debt we have, the only way we can pay our bills is to borrow more money as a country. So they're going to have to issue more bonds and sell more bonds so they can pay the bills. And at this point, I think the world is starting to sour on their appetite for.
Ain't nobody buying it because the bonds what 3% and the interest rate 7%.
Think about it. And then inflation is even higher than that. So think about that. So what does that really mean? So they have to sell these bonds in order to pay their bills. The value of the bonds are going down. And then all this other stuff you've talked about, all this stuff is just converging. It's going to become one big, sweaty, hot mess that the world is going to have to deal with. Y'all, it's getting real out here in these streets. And it's speeding up. So pay attention to ministries like this. You better know what's going on. It's good to understand these things because, see, when I listen to them cover like the bank failures, I said, man, they are not telling people what's really going on. They're not making it clear. Every bank is going through the same thing right now. The only difference is some banks may have other investments that are keeping their ratios tight, meaning that it's based on ratios. And when your assets go down in value at a certain point, that's when they have to take over your bank. So that's why they took over those banks. There are a bunch of banks that are in trouble right now, even more than what they're talking about. And y'all just be ready spiritually and in every other way because it's going down.
All right, thanks, Brother Keith. Brother Doug.
All right, now, thank you so much for giving me a shot here. I think about the Chinese and the possibilities that might develop as time goes on. And I'm in agreement, I believe, with Zechariah in that the Creator has use for all beings, for everyone. And, I look at Xi and I don't know about, I guess evil could be a word that might ascribe to Chinese, but I don't see that he's crazy yet. I don't see he's gone the way of the most folks that in these places of power, but it's coming fast. And the preparation for movement should have been in the forefront of our minds months ago. I've listened to Brother Yacoba since 2016, 2017. And, it's pretty evident, he's not been, I've not caught any error. And until I do, I'm not, it's just a matter of sticking with what works. That's just plain simple truth of it. But I see this coming fast. I've been packed and ready. And as ruthless as China is, I still see there might be something they might do that assists in the long run and accomplishes God's end. That's it. Thanks so much, folks.
All right, thanks, Brother Doug. Brother Mike.
Brother, what I have noticed is that you have a lot of brothers and sisters with educational trades that are enabling our people on this, just on this panel, just right now. You look at all these brothers and sisters on this panel and listen to everything they said. All of them educated. All of them making comments that will contend with us. And this is the thing I would say that we really truly need to respect. Stay into the scriptures. When you stay into the scriptures, you gonna know which brother or sister is falling to the wayside, because they gonna stick to the scriptures. That's one thing brothers and sisters are going to do. People that serve Yah, we're going to stick to the scriptures. We're not looking for any self-glorification, as some people be looking for. And thus far, these brothers and sisters have not did that. They call it the way they see it. And I would not be surprised for the remainder of this week and next week, we're going to hear everything about China. Because trust and believe, they'll listen to everything that we're saying. And they're going to say, hey, this person making a point. And they just may push that out there as a narrative. Because we know, I live in Chicago. When you don't necessarily have to live in Chicago to know this. When you pull up and you go to a corner store, once you pull into the lot, you watching everything about you, your north, south, east, and west. And you could tell when somebody is on some shady nonsense. That's one thing. We have a gift. We just don't walk into no store all willy-nilly and not paying attention. We be on our guard because anything can pop off. Anything. If somebody looks shady, the first thing we be saying in our mind, oh, now let me watch this cat here. He up on some dumb stuff. That's what we do, and we calling it right now. Jacoby, you started it. Boom. All right. China seemed to be kind of shady. All right, this brother making sense. Now everything is like ironing itself out. We got a crease in the jeans now. Yeah, he's right. He's on point. And that's the thing I think that we really truly need to, well, at least me, need to hold on to. That's the thing we really truly need to hold on to. Continue to respect our brothers and sisters and stay within our brothers and sisters. If you may not agree with another brother on their understanding, but have the respect to listen to them and reason from the scriptures. And with that, I land my plane, brother.
All right, thanks, Brother Mike. Brother Don. Final comment.
There we go. Okay. Yep. My phone was running low on the battery. I had to clear that message out the way.
Okay.
I mean, it the picture comes into focus when you start looking at what is, like I said, the population of China. And then the different things that you have pointed out. It all works in that spirit of the Antichrist. He's the one that makes peace and makes the treaties and all till he breaks them. So we're gonna watch this hand unfold. China's been an unassuming foe, and we know how they feel about us on the real, because I saw this video with these Black Americans were in China, and they say, "Oh, what do they call us? What do they call us here?" And they say, "Same thing, same thing." So, and we've seen the videos of the treatment of Black people in China. So they're not our savior, but they're not our savior, but the Most High used Cyrus.
That's it.
And then and then Rome took over. So, you know, that's all I see.
Yeah.
You
And
know, he
people don't
used them to
realize
go.
that when Cyrus took over, we were still held captive for a while
Yeah,
in
exactly.
our own land.
Exactly. Exactly. So, you know, he's gonna use who he's gonna use. And the fact of the matter is there are vessels that were created for honor, and there were vessels that were created for dishonor, but he still uses all the vessels. And my one admonition is no matter how bleak it looks, Yasharel, keep your head up, keep your eyes focused on the Lamb. And I'll land my plane there.
All right. Thanks, Brother Don. Big Red.
You know, I know folks inside the Hebrew camp and outside like to say it's a cult over here, but it's kind of like what Aunt Betty and Uncle Mike was talking about, where everybody think independent. And like I said, I disagree, but you say stuff that you don't say nothing that's just opinion. You know, I see so many people get these TikTok teachers that say stuff on TikTok with no proof. You bring scripture and you bring the proof. And it's nothing that's outside of scripture. And that's what really drew me here, because if you're talking scripture and you're talking prophecy and it's something in context, I'm there. But if you're going to say, oh, I'm prophesying, but you're just making stuff up, you can go on and kick rocks with that nonsense. And this thing, what you said was so, with the China thing was so crazy that I don't think a lot of people think it's crazy. Even some Hebrews call it mythology. But when you said he changes bodies, people don't understand it. That's real. That's a real thing. And it's even talked about even now. Like, it's funny, movies show you more of the real stuff than history books.
Yep.
And it's even the movies, it's so I was just thinking about when I was on the panel how Men in Black back in the day, he picked up the crazy papers. You know, those papers used to have Bat Boy and all those, you know, just extreme, just crazy stuff that we like, oh, that's crazy, that's wild. And he's like, oh, you got those papers? He was like, those papers are just a bunch of lies. He said, oh no, this is the best stuff. He said all the good stuff is in here. And I'm like, that's how it is with these movies. And we see, like, even in the show, what was that movie? Stargate, where they had Apophis and you had the Goa'ulds who would take hosts and they would live forever because when the host would die, they move from another host to the next host. That's even talked about in the Book of the Dead in Egypt, where they talk about the gods leaving bodies and going into different bodies. So this is nothing. What you said was nothing crazy. That's real talk.
Say, Red, can you send that to me? I like to read that.
Oh man, it's in. I will find it. I'm gonna find it. It's a known thing where they talk about that in the Book of the Dead. Because again, you say stuff, and I'm looking at other things. This happened with the Africa thing. I never even thought about the land being in Africa. So when you first brought it up and you showed those maps, I seen those maps before. I was using them to track something else. I wasn't even looking at it for Africa. I was looking at it for something else. So I'm like, yo, I remember that map. I said, yeah, I know that map too. I said, yo, I ain't never thought about it like that. But he's right. He's talking about all these areas. And I'm like, I just seen that area in this map. So it's like nobody over here just blindly following and getting up here like a yes man. Like, this is junk I've independently researched on my own and can back up. Like, this is real. We live in a world that's weirder than real. And the Most High is used. It's so, when you understand the Yah you serve, the Elohim we serve is so ridiculous that he playing 4D chess with these beings that to us regular humans, they seem like gods, but they're not. They're finite because there's a true God that can take these beings that look like gods and be better than them. Yep. So when I see China and Russia going there, it makes me happy. I'm laughing. I'm laughing when I see China say stuff to America and stuff. I don't trust China and I don't trust Russia because we know at the end of the day, they're going to come and they're going to try to start beef with us. We know that. It's a thing that we already know. I'm just taking solace, and just like what Brother Mike said, hey, she used Cyrus. And so I look at this with excitement. You know, I'm still prepared. I tell everybody, get prepared because they playing games. This finance situation is so ridiculous, and just like these people just not smart at all. They not smart at all. It clearly say outside the bank, FDIC 250. Do you know Roku had $500 million in one account in that SVC bank?
Really?
Yes. That bank had so many huge accounts, it was ridiculous. That I'm talking about, bro. Why would you not put that across different accounts? They had
I know that's right.
$500 million in one account, and they just got bit. Like, that's a lot of money. And what's happening is the world is watching, and they see them doing this, and they know That's about to come on all of their currency, because every time they start printing money, it devalues their currency. That's why the Bank of UK and the Bank of Japan had to go and just start dumping dollars and buying back their own currency to aggressively fight back the nonsense that America, the Fed, really not in America, it's the Fed. The Fed been doing, because the Fed is the Fed in name only. They're an independent bank that's controlling everything. So that tells you already what America is about. Like, it's a crazy time to me, and it took every bit of Holy Spirit in me not to gloat. I'm not gonna lie, because I've been
Hey, nephew, tell him who the banks are that own the Fed.
Oh man, we ain't finna go into all that. Them folks already mad because they've been getting called out. It belonged to a tribe of Esau. I'll just say that. Sons of Japheth. But they oh man, I forgot what I was about to say. Crap. But yeah, man. Basically, this thing is real, bro. It's when you said that about the bodies shifting and stuff like that. This thing is real. And oh yeah, I had to stop the bragging, because we've been telling people about this stuff happening. Especially, I've been telling people since 2018 about this finance situation. Anybody who sits and looks at the finance and sees the Ponzi scheme that is the American economy will understand that you can't just keep infinite growth is not real. You can't just keep growing and growing and growing. So if you out there, you got money and access to the bank, make sure you load up stuff, keep your gas tank kind of high, because it's just like what Brother Kerry said. I'm telling y'all, I seen the video where the FDIC meeting with all these bank leaders, and they telling people that they gonna not tell it's gonna be this bank's failing right now. If you look up unrealized losses, these banks have been sitting on these mortgage-backed securities, and the Fed been slamming them with these rates. They've been losing value all along, and these banks ain't realized their losses yet. So they really not. It just happened with SVC because they were so small, and they were so super high leverage because all those venture capitalists over there in California are just dumb. I mean, 500 million in one account. That tell you how smart they are right there.
But they all invest in one another, so every bank is getting affected. They're not telling you that.
Yep, nope, they're not telling you that. The big ones, Chase, Bank of America, what's it called? Wells Fargo quietly had a bank error, a glitch in the matrix that didn't let people pull their money out, because they knew people was lining up outside of other banks to get their money and stuff. Like, come on, man. Anybody with eyes to see know that this junk is finna come down, but they ain't gonna tell you until Friday. So y'all keep y'all money, y'all keep y'all your supplies up. Keep your go bags ready, you know what I'm saying? Make sure you keep your car with gas, because you might just go out one day and try to buy something and your card ain't gonna work, and they ain't gonna tell you until you find out your card don't work.
Yeah, most important, get some food and some canned food, and some water.
Yes.
Jacoba, you see now? Do you see what I'm talking about? Do you hear all this education on this particular channel? On this channel, all this education.
Only intelligent people follow us, because ain't nobody else could follow what we talk about.
Wow.
So, Red, you want to finish?
Yeah, no, I'm gonna do like my Uncle Mike said. I'm gonna land my plane on that
one. Brother Dave, final comment.
Yeah, I just got one thing left to say. Anything that goes against the teachings of Yeshua is a form of colonization. That's all I got to say. Peace out. Love y'all.
Thank you, panel. Appreciate it. And also remember this. It might sound sort of strange that Abaddon, right? Many people call him Satan or whatever, Azazel, whatever his name is, possessing people's bodies. Some of y'all can't deal with that because it's supernatural. But remember that Judas was the son of perdition. The Antichrist, the son of perdition. Judas was possessed by Satan, right? So I mean that's biblical. Okay. So, panel, thank y'all for coming on and for sharing. I don't know how much time we got left with this thing. I feel some kind of way, and I really, some people think we got a year, some people think we got 2. I don't know at this point. I'm just like, I'm looking to wake up one day and this whole thing blown up, right? Everything crashed or something, right? That's how close we are. And if you don't know the Messiah, you best get to know him. If you're not born again, you best make sure you're born again, because things are changing. If you are Gentile, you better start treating Israel right. You better give us our reparations, because guess what? The scripture says you are. And if you don't, guess what's going to happen? Understand that we are the Most High's inheritance. We are his inheritance. Now, how do you think he feel about that? What did he say? He said, what you did to the least of these, my brethren, you done unto me. What y'all done to us? Y'all got to make it right. But I know you're not going to listen. All right, panel. Thank y'all. Peace and blessings, Israel. Your captivity is ending. Love you with the love of the Messiah. Also, please join the Dry Bones Project, right? Support them. They're doing a lot out there on the continent. Let's just pray. Seek the Most High. And share this video if you like what we do. You could give by giving Cash App. You could become a Patreon member. You can like this video. You can share it. Peace out.